Greetings, traders. Zach here from the Trading Network. I hope you guys are doing well, that you had a great weekend, and that you're ready for another excellent week in the markets. I have yet another weekly market profile forecast for you guys for both the NQ and ES futures markets. So we're going to dive right in, starting first and foremost, as usual, with the NQ session profile. I'll move on over to the weekly profile and do the same for ES, and I will also discuss my thoughts very briefly on the candlestick charts as well, mainly daily and weekly. So without any further ado, let's jump right in here. I'm going to be discussing some major inflection points that I'm interested in for potential trade opportunity moving into the beginning of the week, and really just some major areas to keep an eye on that will offer up, once again, some great trades, or very likely offer up some great trades. So one thing that I want to point out first and foremost is that we are opening on this new overnight session. This is this tiny blue profile right here. We're only about an hour deep into the new week, so not a ton of information to gain there as usual. But what I want to point out is this nice little area right around 11,170. You can call it starting at 11,165 as well, technically, since that is Friday's high. So you could draw a zone between Friday's high and the regular trading hours high from January 3rd. Okay, so between 11,165 and 11,182, we have a very important zone that actually goes all the way back to December 26th. Overnight session as well. You can see that the overnight high right here is at 11,183. So if we can move and hold above this level, get acceptance above this level in market profile terms, then we are very likely to see further upside moving into the rest of the week. Now, if we get rejected from this area, which so far, to be fair, we haven't even been able to move up and touch Friday's high. Current session high is 160. So if we get rejected from this area, then we do have a pretty decent move back down towards Friday's value area high at the least at 11,043. And you can see that there's great confluence between that level right there, 11,046, which is the overnight high from the 4th into 5th session. You can see that we have another value area high lining up at 11,043 from January 4th regular trading hours profile. And then right here, another overnight high from the 3rd into the 4th of January at 11,051. So this is, and I can keep going and drawing levels back here. You can see we've got regular trading hours high from December 30th, the overnight POC from the January 2nd into 3rd overnight session. So this area is our next major area that I will be looking at. Of course, we have the high from the 4th at 68. So on our way down, with rejection in tomorrow's regular trading hours session, if we get rejected from this area up here, first and foremost, I would be, looking for a move down to 11,068 to test the high from the 4th. And then if we break that, we've got another great group of levels ranging from, all the way back to December 26th. And I would imagine that there's even more levels here if I were to load more data on my chart, but this is plenty. I mean, you guys can see all of the stacking market profile levels there. That tells me that's a great area for liquidity. That is a great area for price to move to and tap that liquidity. And what supports that even further, if we do get some downside price action, is we have a group of double and even single prints all the way down to 11,043, right? So for those of you guys not as familiar with how market profile works or market profile analysis, essentially when we have a thin area on the profile where there are single or double prints, that means that there has not been a lot of business done there. And what that means, one step further, is that it's much easier for price to move down and tap that liquidity or run through that area because there's not a thick group of orders there, right? When there is a spot on the profile, for example, where these bell curves are, where the point of controls are, it's a lot more difficult for price to just quickly move through that area because there is a lot of orders sitting there, right? So I kind of consider these profiles or the bell curves in general or liquidity as a brick wall, right? When there's not enough liquidity, there's only one row of bricks. Really easy to push through that area, right? But when we have a ton of business done in a certain area, and that usually lines up with the point of control because that is the single price where the most business was done in that particular session. It takes a lot more orders to chew through these levels typically and move, further down in this case. So I just wanted to point that out, that, if we do get further downside pressure, if we get some downside pressure upon open tomorrow, that it's not going to take much, in my opinion, to move down to 11,068 and then that subsequent level right around 11,050, 11,045. And if we do break that to the downside, I'd be looking for a move to 10,970-ish, which is the overnight high from the 5th into 6th extended trading hours session. And then we've got Thursday's high right here at, what is this, 10,927. So I would be looking for a break of this level down to 927. You can see that there's another little zone here between 926. We could even draw it down here to 923 because this is the initial balance low from the 3rd. We also have the initial balance high from the 5th lining up with the high from that same session as well. And then the overnight low here from the 3rd into 4th session. So this 10,930 area, another important zone to work towards as well if we do get downside pressure. And you can see more confluence here between 10,970, 10,980. We've got the regular trading hours point at control from the, what is this, January 4th session. We've got the overnight point of control from the 4th into 5th overnight session. And then, of course, we've got this prior point of control right here from the 3rd into 4th overnight session right there at 972. And then we have a value area high from the 3rd at 968. So a lot of levels in this area. If you want to keep it really simple, I mean, just draw some zones around these areas here. Here's our major upside zone. Here's our next zone to the downside. We can make it, 20, 30 points or so, which is really not a ton for NQ, to be fair. We have another downside zone basically between 10,970 and 10,980, 10,985. And then, of course, we've got some levels to the downside as well to keep an eye on. But one level at a time, as we always say. And at the moment, we're hanging up above 11,125. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we open and the reaction to that open tomorrow. So with that said, as far as the session profile levels go, let's look at the weekly profile. And I will show you guys something that I want to point out first and foremost is that we have a weekly naked point of control from the week of December 19th. That is at 11,185. So there's good confluence between this area. You can see that we got very, very close to it in last week's session. Last week's regular trading hours high, 11,182. So we were quite literally 3.5 points below that naked POC, but it is technically untapped. So what I will be looking for first and foremost on a higher time frame, more of a macro perspective, is indeed a move back up to actually tap that 11,185 naked POC. And if we get rejected, then, once again, here's a weekly level. We've got the weekly high from the week of December 27th at 11,071. We've got the value area high from that same weekly profile at 11,048. We've got the value area high from last week's profile at 11,016. And then we've got the POC at 976. You can see here, which lines up quite nicely with this area that we were just discussing. You can see the point of control from the 4th was actually 976 on the dot. So this is indeed a very important area to keep an eye on for sure, especially if we get some almost immediate downside pressure upon tomorrow's open. So most immediate downside levels on NQ from a weekly perspective, look for a move to 1171, 1148, 1116, and then 10,976. And then, of course, if this breaks, we've got a weekly grouping of levels here. I would say a zone between 10,930 and 10,945, which also lines up with some session profile levels that we were looking at. That's going to be an area of interest, especially because if you look at the monthly volume composite profile here on the right side of the screen, let me move this so you guys can see. I'll even expand it. So here's our high volume node right there. And look at this. Look at this confluence, right? We've got a high volume node that lines up with the value area low from the week of December 19th. So that's a very important area. And once again, you can see that we have a void of liquidity on that profile, lining up with a POC from that 27th, the week of December 27th weekly profile right there, right around 928. So same idea that I was discussing previously where we have single prints or a thin area on the profile. This means that this area is going to be rather easy to move through. And if we break, call it 950, 10,950 to the downside, it's very likely that we get a push through this area and come to tap this, this value area low from the week of the 27th, which lines up with the prior week's low, the week of the 19th at 10,870, and also lines up with the monthly volume composite point of control right around 10,870. And you can see that peak here on the volume profile as well. So that is what I would be looking at on the downside. Now, let's see what we've got if the bulls do take the reins this week and we get a push above last week's high at 11,182 and this naked POC at 11,185. I would be looking at a move to 11,255, which is the value area high from the week of December 19th. And then above that, we've got a weekly low from December 12th at 11,275, right? So we could even draw a zone between 255 and 275. And if we move and hold above that, then that's going to open up, I would say, at least another 100-point move to the high of the weekly profile from December 19th. So on the upside, look for a move first and foremost. If we can move and hold above that on a more macro scale, look for a move from 185 up to 255-ish, and then a break above 255 likely gets you a nice 20-point move at the very least to test this weekly low at 11,275, and then a break and hold above that, like I said, opens up a much larger move, in my opinion, to the high from the week of the 19th at basically 11,390. So that is what I'm looking at. That's what I've got my eye on as far as NQ goes. So let us hop on over to the ES profile as well, and you'll see a very similar situation where we are indeed hanging out right up at the highs from Friday. So very, very similar situation. You guys should know the deal if you've been watching these videos for a long time. ES and NQ, the overall idea and the overall structure are going to be very, very similar. Just going to be different levels to pay attention to, of course. So first and foremost, look at this. We've got, once again, another nice grouping of market profile levels, basically from 39.18 up to about 39.23. You could call it 39.25. One thing that is interesting is that in this current overnight profile, we have moved above the POC and we got rejected a little bit. But once again, we've only been open for less than an hour and a half, so not a ton of information to take from that. But my most important line in the sand level moving forward is indeed going to be this 39.20-ish level. We can move and hold above 39.20, very likely to see some upside levels, which I'll point out to you guys just like I did on NQ on the weekly profile. But because we haven't really been above this area in quite some time, I mean, on a session perspective, if we move above 20 and hold above that, I would look for a move, to like this 39.35, 39.40 area. You can see there is a little zone here between the initial balance low from December 15th, the overnight high from the 15th and the 16th, the value area high from that 15th regular trading hour session. And then if we break and hold above that, I'd be looking for a move pretty quickly up to 39.56, which is the overnight low from December 11th into December 12th. And then we've got another nice grouping of market profile levels, basically between 39.60 and 39.70, call it. So that's another zone that you can target, especially if we get acceptance and move above this 39.56 level. So on the upside, that's what I'm looking at for ES. On the downside, if we cannot move and hold above Friday's high, especially, which just to be extremely clear is at 39.2875. So if we can't move and hold above that level, I would look for rejection and a move back down at the very least to test the overnight high from the second into third, which is 39.06. That lines up with Friday's value area high at 39.04 right here. And then just below that, we've got, let's see, this is Wednesday's high at 39.01, 39.02 area right there. So if we break below this, once again, you guys can see how I like to draw zones with these market profile levels. So if we break this zone, very likely revisiting Thursday's high at 38.96. We break that, looking for a move to 38.85. And that's why I call this kind of like level dominoes, if you will. Once this level gets knocked down, then we're very likely to visit this level. Once this area gets knocked down, we're very likely to visit this, and so on and so forth. So as intraday traders, it's extremely valuable for us to watch these levels, not have any sort of strong bias, and once again, watch the reaction at these levels, right? Because anything can happen, shout out to Mark Douglas, and we need to be prepared for that. And most importantly, in my opinion, we need to be flexible because we can take scalps, quick 1, 2, 5 point scalps off of ES, 10, 15, 20 point scalps on NQ. And I mean, you can make a great living just off little scalps like that. We don't even necessarily have to catch these big moves, but I do like to provide this analysis because I know a lot of our viewers do also trade from a, you know, more macro or higher time frame basis as well. So I think it's important to cover all of our bases there. So with that said, you know, keep an eye for either a break above basically 39.30 or a rejection of 39.30 upon open. You can see that we did have a naked point of control that was technically closed on Friday at 39.23. This is going to be an important level to move and hold above. So that is really my major line in the sand, Friday's high. It's so important to watch at the very base level the reaction to prior session highs, lows, point of controls, and value areas, right? If you want to keep it really basic, obviously just look at the high and low of the prior session. But, you know, you can do that with candlestick analysis. And that's why I love market profile so much, is because it gives us not just the high and low of any given day, it gives us several levels each day to base great trades off of, to use as protection for our stop losses. If you guys watch my scalping videos, you will understand that concept a little bit further as well. And just overall, you know, market profile to me is essentially like a liquidity map. It gives us a clear bird's eye view of the market to help us understand where large players are viewing price as a fair price to buy or an expensive price, which is an area where they're not interested in buying. And on the flip side, they're more interested in selling at those areas, right? So keep those things in mind. I think it's very important to understand, you know, dive deeper into the auction process and market auction theory as a whole, and you truly will be able to level up your trading game tremendously. So with all of that said, let's hop on over to the ES weekly profile and we will scope out some higher time frame levels here. Very, very similar as it usually is. You can see we've got a nice zone right around this 39.20 area. That was not the prior week's high, but it was the high from December 19th, 39.18. The value area low from the week of December 12th was 39.20, so there's some good confluence there. And moving and holding above that level is likely, of course, going to get us a test of last week's high at 39.28, call it 39.30-ish. And then that opens up a larger move on ES up to 39.54 in my opinion, which is not only the weekly low from the week of December 5th, but it's also the value area low. So there's great confluence there. And then a move and hold or acceptance above that 39.54, 39.55-ish level likely gets us a test of the weekly low from November 28th. Okay, so we're moving back quite a bit, but once again, it's important to stay flexible. It's important to understand where these major areas are. You know, weekly lows, weekly value area levels, weekly point of control levels, very, very important, especially from a macro perspective. So that's why I not only discuss the session profile levels, but I also have my own weekly profile structure that I like to look at. And, you know, this has been working tremendously well for me for several years, and that's why I don't change anything, right? I'm a big believer in if it's not broke, don't fix it, and that's why we stick with the profile, because honestly, the profile has been working for a lot longer than I've even been alive. So why change something that works so incredibly well, basically, you know, indefinitely? So with that said, on the upside, look for these levels. You know, look at reaction, or look for reaction to 39.20. If we move and hold above that, 39.30 is a major area. And then if we move above 39.30, once again, very likely a larger move to 39.55, and then 39.75 if we can get acceptance above the low from December 5th. On the downside, I will be looking for, once again, you know, a larger move if we can't get acceptance above last week's high. And that would be down to this 38.82 level, 38.80 call it. Last week's value area high on ES is 38.7950. The prior week's high on ES is 38.8275. And then the prior week's, value area high here is 38.7350, right? So value area high from the week of the 19th lines up with the session high. The weekly high from the week of the 27th. And that lines up with our most recent weekly value area high level right there at 39.80. So that's going to be very important. And if price breaks that level, once again, we'll take a look at the weekly volume composite profile. You can see we've got a high volume node here, right around 38.70. We've got the point of control on the volume profile here at 38.63. And then we've got weekly lows at 38.55, lining up with the POC from the December 19th weekly session at 38.5350. So that's going to be an important area to hold. And if we lose 38.50, then I will be looking for a move at least probably 20 points down to 38.29. You can see that our point of control was all the way down here from last week. So most of our business was done at the bottom of last week's profile, and I am thinking that is where we're going to move to if we cannot get acceptance on the upside. Obviously, we are all the way up here at the top of last week's profile, so we've got a ways to go, basically 100 plus points to get into that area, but nothing is out of the question. So we have to just keep an eye on these areas, make sure that they are noted as important areas to keep an eye on. You can see 38.19. That is not only the value area low from last week, but it's the value area low to the tick from the week before. So that's very interesting to me as well. Break below that gets us to 38.04. And look what we have here. More confluence between the weekly low from the 27th and the value area low from the week of the 19th. So that is, I think, a great deal of levels that you guys can keep an eye on and very, very likely take some great trade opportunity, whether it is, bearish, bullish, or indecisive, right? There are certainly times where we do not have directional conviction, and that is where most people will lose a majority of their money. Most people make their money in a trending environment, and most people give it right back to the market when it starts to range. So I think it's very, very important to be flexible, to have strategies, most importantly, for both trending and ranging market activity. And if you guys do not have specific strategies for trending and ranging market environments, check out our Fundamentals of Futures Trading course. We teach both a trending strategy, which you guys are likely very familiar with, the opportunity zone, and we also teach a ranging strategy, which is not shown as much on the channel here, but it is called the momentum flip, and it is very important to have plays in the playbook for different market environments. So keep that in mind as well. Now, with that said, let's hop on over to the weekly candlestick chart just ever so quickly, and I'll show you guys my thoughts here. We are testing the lows on the NQ weekly chart right here. You can see we've got some decently, the candlesticks are purple, which is technically a bearish candle, but the structure itself is bullish, right? We have these wicks, large wicks at the bottom. So we are not far from closing. Well, I'll say it like this. Where we stand currently at 11,138 does not have us very far at all from last week's high, right? The high of last week is 11,182. So if we can close a weekly candlestick above 11,182, then we are technically confirming a weekly local low. And yes, that will once again technically be a higher low because we have not closed any candlesticks below these lows right here, right? So I think that this is an area where people can be getting short and be getting bearish around the lows. Now, I'm not making any predictions here, but I will say, I am personally leaning towards a bit more upside just based on this structure here. I see it all the time on a 377 tick chart, and, people will get really bearish around the lows. They won't be particularly tuned in to the candlestick structure itself, and this is a great place to trap a lot of late shorts. So once again, take it with a grain of salt because nobody knows what's going to happen. But if we do get that candlestick closure above 11,182, then I will be looking for further upside. I would say towards 11.5K and maybe even higher towards 11.7ish, where we have the 200 exponential moving average on the weekly lining up with the 21 exponential moving average. That's this yellow moving average right there. So I will change this to ES and I will give you my thoughts here. One thing that I think is very important to point out on ES is that we've already technically confirmed a local low on the weekly, right? We have this bullish candlestick closing entirely above the top of the prior weekly bar. So this weekly bar right here, the high of that was 3,950 cents, and we closed the subsequent weekly bar at 39.15 and 50 cents. So only 15 points above, but that technically confirms a weekly local low. And if you guys are watching my scalping videos, you would know that is technically my entry trigger for my scalps, right? Now, this is a weekly chart, of course, but if I was trading a weekly chart, I would be entering here. And again, not financial advice, this is not a trade suggestion, but I'm just telling you from a technical perspective how I'm treating this. If I'm treating this like a 377, I'm entering as soon as this bar closes and my stop loss is below the lows of this as a technical invalidation point, because I know if we break below these lows and specifically or especially close a weekly candlestick below these lows, we're very likely going lower to revisit our prior swing low and perhaps even lower. So that would be my if-then scenario, and this could very well be a macro low. Who knows? But it's already confirmed on the weekly of the ES chart, and it is not confirmed on the weekly of NQ. So it's going to be very interesting once again to see if ES is leading, as it is already confirmed that weekly local low, and if NQ is to follow this week, closing a weekly bar above last week's high at 11,182. So I believe that that's probably going to be it for this video this evening, probably around 20 minutes. And I think that, once again, a lot of great levels to take trades off of, a lot of good levels to keep an eye on for great trade opportunity moving into the week, and even a little bit of weekly candlestick chart analysis. So if you guys are finding value in this content, I would greatly appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, and click that bell notification to be notified every single time that we post videos. If you guys dig the comment, also leave one down below as well. I greatly appreciate that as well. And if you guys are interested in learning more about what we do here at the Trading Network, please check out thetradingnetwork.io, where you can, of course, purchase access to our most popular offering, the TTN Pro Trader Bundle, which consists of our Fundamentals of Futures Trading course, lifetime Discord access, and access to our proprietary indicator package. You can, of course, purchase all of those products standalone on our website. In addition to that, I also offer one-on-one mentorship if you need a little bit more of a tailored experience, specifically catered to your trading and your strengths and weaknesses. And if you guys have any questions about anything that I've mentioned in this video, please feel free to reach out to us at info@thetradingnetwork.io. You can also shoot us a message on Instagram at the.trading.network, and we will get back to you and help any way we possibly can. I want to thank you guys, as always, for taking the time to watch this content, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.